What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're looking at some more I Do Work Here Lady stories. Dad tries to tell German FBI to leave. This was the day after Christmas and my grandpa stayed at our place because the next day would be his birthday. FYI, my grandpa had a few heart attacks in December already, and very early in the morning, like 5 AM, he got the symptoms he always had before the other one, so he called for my parents. My dad gave his dad the medicine he was given by the hospital the last time and they were supposed to wait for an hour, but my grandpa insisted after 2 minutes that nothing changed and told my dad to call an ambulance. My dad stopped arguing after 10 minutes and called the ambulance. I live in Germany, so no expenses. At this point, I finally woke up from the dog, she sleeps in my room, thinking it was time to wake up and waking me. My dad told me to keep the dog in my room and that they just called an ambulance. They arrived a few minutes later and started caring for my grandpa and doing their job. My dad went to close the door behind them and saw a black car outside in front of our house with 2 dudes with weapons. Civilians never carry weapons out in the open like that, and they were obviously some kind of police. He never told me why he realized they were police, but he said he did. He told them that they could leave as they did not require police assistance, it was just a medical emergency. They kind of smiled and told him that they would stay anyways, and my dad asked them to come in then. It was slightly raining and cold. They declined again, still amused, and just asked him not to close the door. My dad was confused but had other problems and decided not to worry about it. When he got into the living room where my grandpa was treated, he then recognized one of the paramedics. It was Joseph Schuster. That is not a name most people are familiar with, but he is the president of the Central Council of Jews in Germany. He is basically the most influential Jew living in Germany. While we are not in any way the way we were, back then, there still are some Nazis around and they would surely have a blast boasting about killing or attacking someone like him. The police outside were Kriminalpolizisten, kind of the German equivalent of the FBI, and were there to protect him in case someone attacked him. It is the kind of story my dad loves to tell to anyone who will listen. My grandpa is at home again. We had to cancel our vacation with him, but he is stubborn and continues eating unhealthy and not doing any kind of activity. So maybe they will be at our door soon again. Oh my god, this is an insane story. As someone who's kind of into history, I did it at university, this is really interesting. So let's have a look on Joseph Schuster's wiki. So it says he was born in 1954 and is a German physician. And since November 2014, he has been the president of the Central Council of Jews in Germany. Isn't that crazy that even today, 80 years after the Second World War, people in positions of power in Germany that are Jewish still need constant protection? OP, thank you very much for sharing this story. This was unexpected but absolutely compelling. Thank you so much. Moving on to our second story, new hire tries to blackmail the owner for favor. This story takes place after I got back from my vacation in Scotland a few years ago. You see, I own a fairly successful seafood restaurant by the local bay. I was the owner, but I was fairly hands-off. Instead, I had a very accomplished manager handling affairs. We had a total of around 50 or so employees and almost everyone was wonderful to be around. It was kind of on my wish list that all the employees were genuinely nice people who were easy to get along with, to build a good environment to work in kind of deal. This story involves the cousin of my manager who was hired purely because the manager vouched for them. I'd heard rumors from other employees that this new hire was trying to throw their weight around and was honestly not the nicest of individuals. So I decided to go in to check the affairs of the restaurant. There is a uniform of black dress shirt and dress pants with dress shoes. I walk in and get greeted by a few of the longer lasting employees as they knew me from back when I was a bit more hands-on. They pointed out the new hire. About halfway through a conversation with one of my older employees, the new hire taps me on the shoulder and tells me she needs to talk to me now. I say okay and she leads me to the office and sits down behind the desk. The conversation goes as such. So I take it you're new to the place since I've never seen you here? Well, actually, I don't really care. You see, I'm the manager here and I'm cousins with the owner, who was actually the manager. So I'm gonna tell you how things work here. I'm now in stunned silence at the boldness. Okay, so I didn't see you clock in when you walked in here. Working off the clock can result in you getting fired. And where you didn't clock in, that means that I can fire you if I want. You're gonna fire me? Well, I might. I could, but since I'm a nice person, I'll give you a chance. But I'm gonna need one little thing from you. Now, I know I could have stopped this at any point and put my foot down as the owner, but I was genuinely curious at this point, so I eagerly asked, what do you need? I need about 350. Now, it was around this time that I realized this new hire was actually 7 stories tall and was a crustacean from the Paleozoic era. God dang it, that Loch Ness monster had followed me from Scotland and tricked me again. I yelled at her as she swam away, never to be seen again. Oh, I think I get this. I think this might be a South Park meme. Okay, so I feel like this story didn't actually happen, but it was quite entertaining nonetheless. I was quite into it until that little bit of a weird ending, I'll be honest. Moving on to our third story, black people live here and work here. I worked as a leasing agent for a garden-style apartment community for about 4 months. It wasn't a great property by any means. The apartments were fine and the amenities were pretty outdated. The point is, we would get all sorts of different people to come in and look around. One day, this young white couple comes in looking for an apartment. Very sweet, pleasant and mannerly. We view a few one-bedrooms, the amenities and discuss lease options. We are wrapping up the tour by the door that leads out of the office when the young woman asks one last question. So, are there any black people that live here? Lots of things immediately started flooding my brain, but in my position there is only one correct answer. For those that don't know, leasing agents are bound by fair housing laws and cannot answer this question saying yes or no, as it would be racially discriminatory. I replied, anyone that fills out an application and passes our income and background check is allowed to lease here. She became frustrated and said, right, I get it, but do black people live here or not? As she was saying this, my assistant manager, who is black and does live on the property, walked into the offices by chance on her day off and overheard the young woman ask me if black people live here. Well, my assistant manager just walked up, held out her hand and said, yes, hi, my name is blank. The couple immediately stammered through damage control. You see, we just... Cue super awkward moments, but this was the icing on the cake. Under her breath, the young woman asked me, your manager approves of this? I looked at her, then at my assistant manager, then back at the woman, pointed at my assistant manager and said, she's the manager. You can ask her yourself if she approves of herself living here. They left without saying another word. My assistant manager and I laughed about it for weeks after. Frickin' racists. Oh, well, that is a funny end to the story, but it doesn't take away from the fact that some people, even today in the modern era, are just disgusting. Isn't it funny how some people always try to uphold the pretense of not being racist? They know quite well that they're in the wrong and their behavior is unacceptable, but they try and fake it anyway. Now, before we move on to our third story, I actually want to tell you all a little story of my own, brought to you by the sponsor of today's video, Dashlane. You see this boy on screen right now? Well, that's me 10 years ago. You could say I seemed innocent, but in reality, I was clueless and actually in a lot of danger every single day. Why, you ask? Well, I use the same password for everything. All of my devices, websites, bank accounts, anything you can think of. Over the next decade, I was hacked multiple times, and even when I changed my passwords, I was hacked again. This continued until about a year ago when I discovered Dashlane, and look at me now, as happy as can be. Dashlane automatically generates a 100% secure password for every website you log into. Netflix, Facebook, Amazon, literally every single one. The amazing thing is you don't even need to remember each password. Dashlane does it all for you. So you can log in with a single click every single time. It has made my life so much easier, and it can make yours simpler too for free on your first device. Then to use Dashlane across all of your devices, use my code Redditor for a discount. Now let's get back into the stories and our final story of this video, Whose Autograph? Back in my late teens, my small town was famous for its annual early music festival. Oh my goodness, wait, think about this. Early music, EM, entitled Mum Festival, anyone? I fell in love with the music, and after one concert, I approached an organizer and said I'd like to be involved, and were there any jobs that needed doing? I had in mind something like stuffing envelopes for mailings. The reply took me aback. You're a bright young lad, would you like to be our treasurer? I was too young and innocent, read stupid, to know that the right answer to this is not on your life, so instead I said, yes, okay. This horrible job did have one light moment that I've treasured, pun intended, very good, for 40 years. Part of my job was to write checks for the agreed fees and hunt down the musicians backstage to pay them after they had given their performances. Most of the musicians I met this way were lovely people, gentle, modest, and pleased to see me. Only one performer wound me up. She was an organist who clearly believed she was God's gift to music and strutted around with an air of arrogance. After her concert, I had trouble finding her and eventually caught sight of her in a corridor and ran after her waving a pad and pen. She saw me, stopped, and beamed. Hello, young man, would you like my autograph? Not really, I replied. I'd rather thought you'd like mine. And flipped open my pad, actually a checkbook, signed her check and handed it over. I've never seen someone look so crestfallen when getting paid. You know, I can't tell if this musician was nice or arrogant, but the way you write right suggests it may well have been the latter. If that is the case, then yeah, karma was handed to her. Well done. Anyway guys, that is going to be the end of this video. I really hope you have enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, comment your opinions down below, and subscribe. If you want more videos from me, click the one on screen right away. It's an absolute cracker. Finally, I just want to say a massive thank you to Dashlane for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check them out. The link is in the description below.